"Step out of the vehicle, sir. Put the phone down now." Red and blue lights flashed against our shipping truck on the runway. My boss's son was screaming into his phone. He had no idea his $45 million deal had just hit a wall. But to understand how we got to that runway, we have to go back 6 months. I spent 22 years in the United States Air Force, retiring as a logistics officer. During my final tour, I managed parts logistics for F-16 fighter squadrons at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, right here in Tucson, Arizona. In that role, tracking every serial number of restricted military components was not just a job, it was a matter of national security. When you transition to civilian life, you expect corporate managers to share that same respect for the rules. Instead, you quickly learn that private equity groups care only about Q3 margins and shareholder reports. That is how I ended up at Aegis Defense Systems. Aegis is a mid-tier defense contractor that builds advanced sensors, telemetry modules, and guidance packages. My title was Export Control Manager. But more importantly, under federal law, I was the company's registered empowered official. Most people in the corporate world have no idea what an empowered official is. They think it is just another fancy compliance title. It is not. Under the International Traffic in Arms Regulations, or ITAR, the U.S. Department of State requires every defense exporter to have a designated individual who is legally authorized to represent the company in export transactions. As the empowered official, I had the final sign-off on every international shipment of military hardware. If Aegis shipped a restricted component without the proper State Department license, the government would not just fine the corporation. They would come after me. I carried personal criminal liability. I could face up to 20 years in federal prison for a single unauthorized transaction. Because of that, I kept my nose clean, documented everything, and followed the regulations to the letter. Our primary product at the Tucson facility was the Aegis 7 Apex Tactical Drone Guidance System. It is a highly sophisticated unit, integrating a specialized cryogenically cooled focal plane array for thermal imaging and a proprietary anti-jamming military GPS antenna developed using federal defense research grants. Because of these advanced military-grade capabilities, the system is classified under Category 8 of the United States Munitions List. That means it is treated with the same level of security as a missile guidance computer or a fighter jet radar. You do not just pack it in a box and ship it. You need an approved Form DSP-5 export license from the Directorate of Defense Trade Controls, or DDTC. Normally, getting a DSP-5 license approved takes months. The government vets the end user, checks the shipping routes, and verifies the security protocols of the recipient country. By August, Aegis was in a massive financial squeeze. 2 years prior, our founder had retired and sold the majority stake to a private equity group called Vanguard Holdings. They installed Richard Vance as the new CEO. Richard was a typical corporate climber. He did not know anything about defense engineering, but he knew how to read a balance sheet and cut corners. Shortly after taking the job, Richard hired his son, Ryan Vance, as the vice president of global operations. Ryan was 32, fresh out of an Ivy League business school, and possessed an insufferable level of arrogance. He viewed federal regulations as administrative red tape designed to slow down his career progression. Vanguard Holdings had loaded Aegis with debt to finance the acquisition. We had strict financial covenants with our lenders. If we did not hit our third-quarter revenue targets by September 30th, our debt-to-equity ratio would breach the bank's limits. The banks would call in our loans, and Aegis would face immediate technical default. To prevent this, Richard and Ryan had pinned all their hopes on a $45 million deal with a private security contractor based in Turkey. The Turkish firm wanted 90 Aegis 7 guidance units for a security patrol drone fleet. The contract was signed, the units were manufactured, and they were sitting in our secure warehouse in Tucson, packed on pallets and wrapped in heavy-duty anti-tamper foil. There was only one problem. The DSP-5 export license application was still sitting in the pending queue at the State Department. We had applied for it late because Ryan's operations team had messed up the initial paperwork, forgetting to include the certified end-user undertaking form. The DDTC had sent it back for correction, which pushed our timeline back by 6 weeks. It was mid-September. The Q3 deadline was less than 2 weeks away. If those 90 units did not ship and clear our docks before midnight on September 30th, Aegis would not be able to recognize the $45 million in revenue. The company would miss its covenants, and Vanguard Holdings would likely strip Richard and Ryan of their positions and equity. To bypass this regulatory barrier, Ryan and his father decided to seek a workaround. Instead of waiting for the State Department, they hired an expensive private compliance consulting firm based in Washington, D.C., run by a former staffer of the Directorate of Defense Trade Controls. This consultant was paid a massive fee to draft a formal legal opinion letter. The letter argued that because the Turkish client was a private security firm and the drones were intended for non-combat territorial surveillance, the Aegis 7 Apex guidance systems could be reclassified under the Export Administration regulations as civilian dual-use items. They argued that the shipment fell under a civilian classification code, ER99, which did not require an export license for Turkey. Equipped with this consultant's opinion letter, Ryan Vance walked into my office on a Tuesday morning. He did not knock. He just pushed the door open, threw the legal opinion letter and a stack of shipping manifests onto my desk, and sat down on the corner of my table. "Mercer," Ryan said, tapping his fingers on the wood. "We need to clear the Turkish shipment. The carrier is scheduled to pick up the pallets from the Tucson depot on Monday morning. They have a chartered cargo aircraft waiting at Phoenix Sky Harbor. We are going to bypass the pending DSP-5 license and export them under the ER99 classification, using this consulting opinion as our legal justification." I looked at the consultant's letter, then back up at him. "Ryan, this document is worthless. A private consulting firm has no authority to override a federal ITAR classification. The Aegis 7 units contain military-grade thermal sensors listed under USML Category 8. Lowering their classification to ER99 on the shipping manifests to bypass the State Department is export fraud. If I sign that electronic export information filing, I am committing a felony. My signature goes on the automated export system filing, and the criminal liability stops with me. I will not sign off on this." Ryan's face reddened. He stood up, leaning over my desk to look me in the eye. "You work for Aegis, Mercer, not the State Department. You do what you're told. We need that $45 million on the books by the end of the month, or we are all out of a job. You sign the release, or we will find someone who will." I did not argue with Ryan. Raising my voice would only make him dig in further. I simply gathered the documents, placed them in a folder, and locked them in my fireproof file cabinet. Ryan glared at me for a long moment, waiting for a response, before turning on his heel and slamming my office door. As soon as his footsteps faded down the hall, I turned to my computer. We used a customized SAP Enterprise Resource Planning system to manage our inventory and warehouse operations. The SAP system was integrated with our shipping logistics module. As the registered empowered official, my user profile had administrative clearance. I pulled up the inventory records for the 90 Aegis 7 Apex units sitting on pallets in Bay 4 of the secure warehouse. I opened the compliance lock interface. I selected the batch numbers, entered the USML Category 8 classification, and applied a hard export hold. In our system, a hard hold physically locks the inventory records. The warehouse staff cannot generate shipping labels, the logistics system cannot assign a carrier tracking number, and the shipping doors will not electronically unlock for those specific pallets without a cryptographic release code that only my security token could generate. I added a detailed note in the compliance log. "Shipment suspended, pending approval of Department of State DSP-5 export license. Misclassification of USML Category 8 items as ER99 is strictly prohibited under 22 CFR Section 127.1. I printed a copy of the log, placed it in my briefcase, and drove home. I knew what was coming, but I had underestimated the lengths to which they would go. The next morning, I arrived at my office at 7:30. Almost immediately, my computer monitor flagged a suspicious background data transfer warning. Someone was accessing the secure engineering database using my administrator credentials. I knew I had not initiated any transfers. Instead of opening my system portal, I walked down the back hallway to the server room to see Sarah, our lead database administrator. Sarah was a meticulous engineer who had been with the company for 12 years. She despised Ryan's reckless management style and valued data integrity above all else. I pushed open the heavy door to the server room. Sarah was staring at her monitors, her brow furrowed. "Sarah," I said quietly, "check the secure engineering server logs. I just got a data transfer alert." She clicked through several windows and her eyes widened. "Robert, someone is downloading the complete technical specifications and source code of the Aegis 7 Apex targeting system using your username. But the transfer is originating from an IP address inside the IT department's testing lab." I leaned over her shoulder. Can you see who is logged into that local terminal? Sarah typed a command. It is Marcus. He is Ryan's lead IT systems administrator. Robert, they are fabricating a data transfer in real time. They are modifying the database audit logs to make it look like you downloaded this classified data to an unauthorized device. I felt a cold surge of adrenaline. They were setting me up. They knew they could not fire me for refusing their illegal export order, so they were creating a fake national security breach to terminate me for cause. Sarah, I said, can you lock down the transaction log metadata? She nodded grimly. I am copying the raw system log file, including the IP origin records and Marcus's administrator key signature, onto a physical write-once read many optical drive. Once it is written to this warm drive, it cannot be modified or deleted. She initiated the burn process, retrieved the disk, and placed it in a secure evidence bag. She handed it to me. Keep this safe, Robert. This proves the logs on the server are forged. I took the disk, placed it in my briefcase, and walked back to my office. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. It was the CEO's executive assistant. Richard Vance wanted to see me in his office immediately. When I walked into the corner suite on the 3rd floor, Richard Vance was standing by the window. His son Ryan was sitting in one of the leather chairs, bouncing his leg nervously. On the mahogany conference table lay a printed notification from the logistics manager showing that the Turkish shipment had been flagged with my compliance block. Also present was our general counsel, who looked incredibly uncomfortable. Richard turned around. "Robert, sit down," he said, gesturing to the chair next to the general counsel. I sat down and crossed my legs. "Good morning, Richard." "Let's skip the pleasantries," Richard said. "My logistics director tells me the warehouse cannot print the bills of lading for the Turkey contract because of a system hold you placed. Is that correct?" "Yes, it is," I replied. "The DSP-5 license application is still pending. We cannot export those units without it. Bypassing the system by misclassifying them as ER-99 civilian sensors is a direct violation of federal law. As the registered empowered official for Aegis, I cannot permit it." Richard sighed, rubbing his temples. "Robert, we have a formal opinion from a former DDTC official stating that this classification is a defensible legal position. The client is a private firm. We will get the license approved retroactively in a few weeks, but we need this revenue on the books now. If we miss the Q3 deadline, the banks will trigger a default. I am giving you a direct executive order. Remove the SAP hold, sign the AES shipping authorization, and let the logistics team do their job." "I cannot do that, Richard," I said quietly. "A consultant's opinion letter has no legal standing against federal regulations. If you want to bypass compliance, you will have to do it without me." Richard glanced at the general counsel, who cleared his throat. "Robert, we cannot force you to sign, but your refusal to cooperate with executive orders is causing severe operational damage." I knew the general counsel had warned Richard that they could not fire me for refusing to participate in an illegal act. That would be a wrongful termination lawsuit in violation of public policy, a massive legal risk. To get around this, they were now relying on the framed security breach. Richard opened a folder on his desk and pulled out a stack of printouts. "Then we have a security issue, Robert. Late last night, our IT security system logged an unauthorized download. Someone accessed the secure engineering server and copied the complete technical specifications and source code of the Aegis 7 Apex targeting system onto an unencrypted external drive. The logs show the download was performed using your administrator credentials." I looked at the printouts. The server logs indeed showed my username downloading the files at 11:45 p.m. "Robert," Richard said, his voice cold, "downloading classified ITAR-controlled technical data to an unauthorized device is a major national security violation and a breach of our Department of Defense security clearance protocols. This constitutes gross misconduct and a material breach of your contract. Effective immediately, your employment with Aegis Defense Systems is terminated for cause." Because it was for cause under Clause 14C, they were invoking the clawback clause. I would forfeit my $350,000 in unvested restricted stock units and my 12-month severance pay. They were trying to ruin me financially and destroy my professional reputation to cover their tracks. "Understood," I said. I stood up and picked up my briefcase. I did not show anger. I had prepared for this. "Your company credentials have been deactivated," Richard said. "2 armed security guards are waiting outside to escort you out." The security guards escorted me to my office. Under their watch, I packed my personal belongings. I did not touch my computer. I logged out of the system, left my company-issued hardware security token on the desk, and walked out of the building. What they did not know was that I had spent my final minutes before my account was deactivated performing one crucial task. I had logged into the actual Department of State's DECS portal. Using my official, government-issued EO credentials, which were verified by the federal database, I submitted a formal licensing hold and disputed classification notice for the Aegis 7 Apex program. I flagged the company's pending DSP-5 application and noted that the corporate executives were attempting to bypass the licensing requirement by misclassifying the items as civilian sensors. I also had the warm drive backup, proving that the server logs Richard presented had been modified by an IT administrator account at midnight, long after I had left the building. I had the evidence to prove the frame-up, but I did not file a lawsuit immediately. I sat back and watched the compliance trap spring itself. On Monday morning, Ryan Vance went to work. The chartered cargo aircraft was waiting at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport. The logistics team had the 90 units loaded onto a flatbed trailer, but they still could not print the federal shipping documents because of the hold in the SAP system. Using the consulting opinion letter as justification, Ryan ordered the IT department to bypass the SAP lock. They manually generated a bill of lading and shipped the cargo to Phoenix. However, Ryan faced a final barrier: the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. To export any goods from the United States, an exporter must submit Electronic Export Information, or EEI, through the Automated Export System, which is run by U.S. Customs, to receive an Internal Transaction Number, or ITN. Without an ITN, the airline would not load the cargo. Ryan logged into the customs portal using the company's corporate credentials. He filed the EEI, entering the description as civilian survey sensors and listing the classification code as ER99, claiming the license exemption. The customs automated export system instantly processed the filing. But because the system is integrated with the State Department's DEC's database, it ran a check on the registrant ID for Aegis Defense Systems. The DCCS database returned a critical warning flag. The Aegis 7 program was currently flagged with an active licensing dispute filed by the registered empowered official, Robert Mercer. Furthermore, the system detected that Robert Mercer's corporate email and Active Directory account had been deactivated by Aegis, meaning the company currently had no active, functioning registered empowered official on file. Under ITAR Section 122.5, any change in the status of an empowered official must be reported to the State Department immediately. Exporters operating without a registered, active EO are automatically suspended from exporting defense articles. The customs computer instantly rejected the filing, denying the ITN. It flagged the transaction with a red alert: unauthorized filing, disputed USML category, potential ITAR evasion, exporter registration suspended. The system automatically sent an alert to the Department of State's Office of Defense Trade Controls Compliance and to the Homeland Security Investigations Field Office in Nogales, Arizona. At the cargo terminal at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, Ryan Vance was waiting for the ITN. Instead of a transaction number, 3 unmarked black SUVs pulled onto the tarmac, their blue lights flashing. Special agents from Homeland Security Investigations stepped out of the vehicles and approached the truck. They presented a federal seizure warrant to the driver and placed federal evidence seals on the shipping crates, confiscating the $45 million cargo. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic for Aegis, because the automated export system had flagged the company for ITAR evasion and suspended its registration. The Defense Contract Management Agency in Washington issued a unilateral stop work and payment suspension order. Aegis relied on monthly progress payments from the government to fund its operations. We had over 400 employees on the payroll, and our weekly operational costs were massive. With the progress payments frozen and the $45 million Turkish shipments seized, Aegis had no incoming cash. The bank that held the company's primary revolving credit line saw the federal suspension notice and immediately froze our operational accounts. Aegis was in a terminal liquidity crisis. If the suspension was not lifted within 7 days, the company would not be able to meet payroll, and the bank would foreclose on the factory assets, shutting down the entire operation permanently. I was sitting on my back porch, enjoying the morning heat and drinking a cup of coffee, when my phone rang. The caller ID showed the corporate number for Richard Vance. I answered on the 3rd ring. "This is Robert Mercer." Richard's voice was strained, filled with the background noise of sirens and shouting in his office. We need to talk. You need to get down to the office immediately. I don't think so, Richard, I said, keeping my voice calm. As you recall, I was terminated for cause last Wednesday for an alleged security breach. I am no longer an employee of Aegis. Richard ignored the comment. Look, we have a crisis here. The customs computer glitched. They held the Turkish shipment, and the State Department has temporarily suspended our registration because they think we don't have an empowered official on file. You need to log back into the DECCS portal, file the correction, and tell them it was an administrative error. It wasn't a glitch, Richard, I said. And it wasn't an administrative error. Your son attempted to ship USML Category 8 hardware using a fraudulent ER99 classification to bypass federal regulations. I placed the SAP hold because it was my legal duty to stop an illegal transaction, and before I left, I submitted a formal licensing dispute on the DC's portal. I complied with the law. You and your son did not. Listen to me, Mercer. Richard's tone turned desperate. We can fix this. If you come back, we will make this right. I will personally override the termination notice. I will authorize the immediate vesting of your $350,000 in RSUs. We will pay you a $500,000 consulting fee to resolve this registration issue. Just tell the DDTC that the filing was a clerical mix-up. We need that contract, Robert. If the DCMA payment freeze stays in place until Friday, the bank will default us. You want me to lie to federal investigators to cover up a felony, Richard? I asked. For $500,000? I spent 22 years in the military. I don't sell my integrity. And I certainly don't go to prison to save a CEO who framed me for a security breach. Robert, please, Richard pleaded. The company will go under. 400 people will lose their jobs. My career is over. We can work something out. If you want to talk about settlements, Richard, you can contact my attorney, I said. He has the warm drive backup proving that your IT administrator forged the security server logs to frame me. I suggest you get your own lawyer. Have a good day. I hung up the phone. The Vances had spent their entire lives believing that money and corporate power could bypass any rule. They had no idea that the federal government does not care about a private equity group's Q3 revenue targets. By Thursday afternoon, the board of directors at Aegis Defense Systems had realized that Richard and Ryan Vance had led the company into a legal minefield. The private equity firm, Vanguard Holdings, which held the majority stake, called an emergency board meeting. The company's chief legal counsel had reviewed the evidence my attorney had forwarded. The warm drive logs proved that the Vances had framed me to cover up an ITAR violation. If the board did not act immediately, the Department of State would escalate the temporary suspension to a permanent debarment. Debarment meant Aegis would be blacklisted from doing business with the United States government. The $500 million Pentagon contract would be canceled. The company would go bankrupt, and Vanguard Holdings would lose their entire investment. The board acted with corporate ruthlessness. By a unanimous vote, they terminated CEO Richard Vance and VP Ryan Vance immediately, for cause, stripping them of all stock options, equity, and severance. The board then authorized the corporate counsel to cooperate fully with the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security, turning over all internal files, emails, and database records to lay the criminal blame entirely on the Vances as rogue actors. The Department of State's DTCC and the Department of Justice offered Aegis a deferred prosecution agreement, but it came with strict federal mandates. To lift the export suspension and resume DCMA progress payments, the government required Aegis to appoint an independent compliance monitor with absolute veto power over all export transactions. The DOJ specifically recommended my reinstatement, noting that my actions had saved the government from a major ITAR breach. On Friday morning, I received a call from Diane Croft, a senior board member who had just been appointed as the interim CEO. She asked for an emergency meeting with me and my attorney at a neutral law office in downtown Tucson. When we arrived, Diane and the company's lead outside counsel, Arthur Pendleton, were already waiting. Arthur was a senior partner at a major white shoe law firm in Washington. He did not waste time. Robert, Arthur said, adjusting his glasses, the board is ready to settle. We have reviewed the warm drive data provided by your attorney. It is clear that you were wrongfully terminated and framed to facilitate an illegal export. More importantly, the Department of State's DTCC has made your reinstatement a mandatory condition of the deferred prosecution agreement. Because of your pristine record in the Air Force and your refusal to participate in the Vance scheme, they will not accept any other individual as the independent compliance monitor for Aegis. Diane Croft slid a thick blue folder across the glass table. "We want you back, Robert. Here are the terms we are offering." I opened the folder. The agreement was comprehensive. First, Aegis would immediately reinstate my employment, promoting me to Vice President of Global Compliance. The position came with a 50% increase in my base salary and a guaranteed 3-year employment contract. Second, the company would immediately vest the $350,000 in restricted stock units that Richard Vance had tried to claw back. Third, Aegis would pay a settlement of $500,000 to cover my legal fees, emotional distress, and wrongful termination damages. But I did not care about the money as much as I cared about the authority. I flipped to the section detailing my operational powers. "I need a specific clause added to Section 4, I said, looking Diane in the eye. "I want it explicitly stated that the Vice President of Global Compliance has absolute unreviewable veto power over all shipping logistics and export filings. If compliance flags a shipment, no executive, no CEO, and no member of the board can override the hold. The lock can only be released when compliance receives an approved federal license. If anyone attempts to bypass this authority, it triggers an immediate breach of contract, requiring the company to pay out the remainder of my 3-year salary in full." Arthur Pendleton nodded. "That is acceptable, Robert. Under the terms of the federal DPA, the compliance monitor must have absolute independence. Your veto power is not just corporate policy, it is now a federally mandated condition of our registration." "And the Vance investigations?" I asked. "Aegis is cooperating fully with the federal grand jury," Diane said. "We have already turned over the server logs, Ryan's emails, and the security footage of him entering the IT server room. The company is seeking a deferred prosecution agreement. To get it, we are exposing Richard and Ryan to the full extent of the law." I signed the contract. 2 hours later, my attorney submitted the formal notification to the Department of State's DDTC, indicating that I had been reinstated as the active empowered official for Aegis Defense Systems. With my active digital certificate restored, I logged into the DECCS portal and cleared our corporate registry status. By Monday morning, the Department of State lifted the temporary export suspension. The DCMA reinstated our progress payments, and the bank unfroze our operational accounts. Aegis was back in business, and the 400 employees kept their jobs. 3 weeks later, Richard and Ryan Vance were formally indicted by a federal grand jury. The charges included conspiracy to violate the Arms Export Control Act, export fraud, and computer fraud for forging the security logs to frame an employee. Because they had attempted to smuggle military-grade hardware out of the country under a false civilian classification, they were facing serious time. Ryan Vance was looking at up to 15 years in a federal penitentiary. His father, who had authorized the scheme, was facing 10. My first day back at the Tucson facility was quiet. I walked through the security gates, holding my new VP badge, and went up to the executive suite. The names on the CEO and VP offices had already been scraped off the glass doors. I walked down to my new office, which was 3 times the size of my old desk. I set down my briefcase, sat in my leather chair, and logged into the compliance portal. I pulled up the pending shipping queue. The 90 units of the Aegis 7 Apex guidance system were still sitting in Bay 4 of the warehouse. The hard hold in the SAP system was active. I looked at the tracker. Our DSP-5 export license application was still in the pending queue, showing under review. I closed the window, took a sip of my coffee, and smiled. The shipment would move when the government said it could move, and not a single second before.